if you're looking to grow equity and grow the actual pile of capital that you have, then we're a good fit.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. Nothing you hear on this show is legal or investment advice, nor is it an offer to buy or sell securities. Always consult your own legal and financial professionals before making decisions. Awesome. Welcome back to another Capital Flow podcast. We've got an incredible guest with us today. If you're looking to raise $100,000 or more from a single investor, this is the show for you. All of our guests are experienced fund managers, operators, or service providers in the space that are going to help you learn how to better raise capital from private investors. All the topics, all the things we talk about on the show fall into one of three pillars of capital raising, and that's marketing, building awareness of what you do. It's sales, actually being able to close the people, and then nurturing, building that relationship, because ultimately people are only going to cut you a check if they have that trust with you. So really excited. I got a good friend with me today. Alan and I have gone back quite a few years now, and he's been doing some phenomenal things in the real estate investment space with his partner in San Diego. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those projects and how he's raised over $9 million in just the last 18 months. So Alan, super excited. Thank you for coming in today.
Dallon, this is always fun.
So, Alan, for our listener, before we get into your projects and all the success you've seen these last 18 months, share with our listener a little bit about you and how you even got started in real estate.
Well, I think getting started in real estate was an accidental adventure. What I was really trying to do was build something for myself. That something happened to be a 100-unit apartment complex. I didn't know that was a big deal. I just knew other people had done it, and so why wouldn't I be able to do it? I've since been educated a little bit.
Hold on. Your first project was a 100-unit development.
Yes, it was. And I didn't realize that was a big accomplishment. Other people had done it, and I figured I could do it too. I think the part of my brain that is supposed to let you know when something is difficult was missing when it was installed. And so I bought this piece of property and began drawing plans and going through the process of getting that ready to be an apartment complex. In that process, I've since learned that is a fairly large undertaking, but that's really how I got started.
That's incredible. I mean, a lot of people start with a single family home or residence or maybe a small duplex or fourplex, but man, you went for it.
Full send.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about that project. What's going good? What's not going good? And how did that get you to where you are today?
Well, I think I'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
And as I started doing things, I realized that there was a lot I didn't know. And, that process led to trying to figure out where to get that knowledge. And so I just started going to meetups. I joined several different networking groups. Most of those, I didn't find what I was looking for, but a few did. And that led me to where I am right now. The other question that you asked before that was, how is that project doing? Currently, have a verbal commit on selling it as entitled. I've since realized that my interest and my skill set is not in that development piece. It's more in relationships and capital. And I'm going to be better served focusing all of my energy on what I'm doing right now in San Diego than I would be trying to split that. So
you bring up a really good point that I think a lot of people, especially newer to the real estate space, don't recognize or pick up on right away. And that's really understanding what energizes you, what drives you, what motivates you, where can you serve people the most in this industry? Because taking down multi-million-dollar projects, you can't do everything. It's not a you can't wear all the hats, and it requires a lot of work. And I think it takes a lot of people time to figure out, okay, what do I actually want to do? What motivates me? What drives me? When you look back on that experience, because obviously you have clarity now, for somebody that might be in a similar situation as you were back then when that project was starting, looking back, what could you share with that person that might help them get the clarity quicker that you now have?
I don't know that I would try and get it quicker.
Okay.
And the reason for that is in the process of discovery, I gained valuable resources, connections, experience that I couldn't replace in any other way. And while it's nice maybe to skip to the front of the line, and maybe some people can do that, the things that I learned in the process of what I thought was failing have been the things that actually qualified me to be able to do what I'm doing. Going through the process, learning that by myself, I'm development I enjoy, but I don't have the technical skill set or knowledge to carry that off on my own. With a qualified partner, I do. And so it's as I really failed at different things that I gained the tools and resources that I needed to succeed in what I'm doing right now. Absent of those experiences, I wouldn't understand, and I wouldn't be qualified to do what I'm doing.
That's a really strong perspective that I think needs to be shared more. I share this with some people. Version 1 is better than version none. And it was through those, for what I'm gathering from you, it was through just taking action that enabled you to get that clarity. So had you not taken that action, do you think you would have the clarity that you have now?
Oh, definitely not. And another thing is I didn't know that it was going to end up and that wasn't going to be the thing. I started with the intention of doing it all the way. But I think that's another thing that I've learned, especially in the last few years, is it's okay to reset your target. I have goals. Probably this is a great time of year when people are talking about goals and visualization, and I am too. I think one of the best things that I've learned in the last few years is it's okay to start towards an objective, but if you realize that it's really not something you're passionate about or not going to get you to where you think you're going, it's okay to pivot and go in a different direction. You still get to keep the knowledge and the understanding and the experiences that you have, and then you can apply that to something that really is going to serve you and others.
One thing I want to point out too, through you sharing your experience, as entrepreneurs, I feel like we have the tendency to just bounce around from idea, from strategies, from different businesses, from different things. And hearing you share about it's okay to pivot. It's okay to make some of those changes. For that person that might be struggling, just thinking they're just going from one next good idea to the other good idea, what could you share with them? Because what I see you're doing, you're still in the real estate. You're still in the real estate space. You still have that singular focus. Some of your goals have changed, and the stepping stones that you've taken to get there have changed and look different than what maybe you had visualized. But for that person that's concerned about, is this time to pivot or do I keep pushing? Any insights, anything you could share about your own experience going through that?
Yeah, you need to have a great network around you. So there's intuition and inspiration, which I think you need to trust and you need to follow that. There's also information. And I know I don't have all the information. So where we just talked about me listing for sale and really now being in a position to sell that development that I was working on, that wasn't me. My intention was to push through, get it finished. Over the last few years, I've been blessed with an incredibly experienced network of people that have accomplished, really in some cases, more than I even want to. But I was at a point where I was feeling frustrated with the progress and recognizing that something needed to change. And so I reached out to that network. I had a lunch with 4 or 5 guys that have extensive business and development experience, and just laid out what I'd been done, what I was working on, what direction I was headed now. And at the end of the day, they all came back and said, if you were deciding today to start this, or if you're going to invest the same time, energy, and resources into what you're doing now, what would you do? And I said, well, that's an easy choice. I would do what I'm doing right now. They said, well, then what you need to do is divest yourself of this as quickly as possible so you're fully focused in the direction that you're heading. And while that seems like an easy conclusion to come to, it wasn't. I don't want to quit, right? I don't feel like I'm a quitter. And before then, it felt like quitting, not changing. And so that's what I would say is the network around you is going to be your most valuable resource, no matter what you're doing or where you're at. And I really credit them and am grateful for the advice that they gave, which helped point me in that direction. Also, I think just the recognition that becoming okay with the process of failing, it's okay to start and fail and start and fail. I used to think I had business ADD. Like I would just start something, and sometimes it became very successful and I just got bored. And through some business coaching, again, resources through networking, came to realize that what I really love in business is the creative process. And I have to be creating. Once it gets to like a stabilized place where now it needs to be managed, somebody else loves doing that. That's not what I love. I need to seek other adventure and opportunity creatively. And now that I understand that about myself, I can dive into that. And that's really what I love about what I'm doing now, because it's a constant creative process, whether it's creating relationships or acquiring a new property or developing that property. All of it is creative, and there's very little long-term management. It's just a very quick flow for me.
Going back to that clarity, if people had more clarity on their role and their position, I think it could just shave off years of time. And you mentioned that getting to these positions and not wanting to quit, I think that's natural for most entrepreneurs. And a pivot sometimes can feel like them giving up or quitting. And I think it's our own belief system that we have to work through. And to your point, having a really strong network, people that have done or been where you want to go, good partners, good friends, good networks, they're going to be very objective about it. And they're not going to tell you what you necessarily want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear. And it seems like you experience that with this group.
Yeah, and that would be the one thing that I would have changed from the experience you asked before. If I would do the same thing again, or what would I change? It would have been being more intentional about having a strong network when I was younger. I didn't have that, and so I've had to build it. The interesting thing is the reason why they were able to give that advice is because they'd held on to projects that they weren't passionate about for too long, and it cost them money. It cost them time, money, energy. There was no win in that situation. So they paid the price of what you might call failing, but really of education.
Yeah.
And that's what I prefer anyway. I don't really see anything as a failure. I either get education or I get income. And one of those two things is going to happen no matter what you're doing, right? Yeah. And they paid the price of education and were willing to share it with me. So I didn't have to pay the price of education. I could benefit from their wisdom.
So there's other people that would be in the same seat as you, same situation, but they would be so emotionally attached to that property that they wouldn't have the humility to recognize it. I would call it a distraction at this point because of what you have going on in San Diego. But you listened. Not only did you go to them for advice, you listened. You were humble enough to recognize that, yeah, maybe this is what I actually need to do. Was that difficult for you? How did you come? Because people can share their thoughts, they can share their opinion, but ultimately it was you coming to that decision.
Well, first, Alan, I want to thank you because this is the first time in the history of my life anyone said I was humble. And so I want to make sure that that was captured on camera and audio so I can share that with my wife when we're done. I think that it was easy for me to be humble because everyone in that room was more experienced than me. I think it'd be more difficult to be the guy with all the experience and be willing to learn from someone who doesn't have the experience, which I would say I'm probably not as good at. I'm trying to improve. But in this case, I've surrounded myself with people who are more accomplished in different areas. In some ways, I have my own contribution to the group, which is why they let me stick around. But in this particular instance, one of the gentlemen that I was having lunch with has developed well over 10,000 homes. I would be silly not to listen to that guy.
Yeah.
The other guy who had held on to a property for longer than necessary is one of the largest owners of single-family homes in the state of Arizona. I would be silly not to listen to that guy. And so I feel incredibly blessed and fortunate to have a network of people far more experienced, wealthy in wisdom, and monetarily far beyond where I am right now. And that's a real blessing and a treasure.
I agree 100% with you because there's that common saying, your network is your net worth. So for someone listening that says, like, Alan, I agree with you, but I don't know where to find these people, what would you share with them?
Well, I would ask a question. I would say, where have you looked?
Okay.
And because I didn't just all of a sudden snap my fingers and say, wow, I'd really like to have a network, and then it showed up, right? I had to be intentional. I was searching for it online. I was looking at local real estate meetups. And as I took that action, I started to understand and learn where these networks were and what was necessary to be involved. So I would share the network that I'm involved. That might not be the best fit for everybody. It wouldn't have been the best fit for me maybe 10 years ago, but it is today. It might not be the best fit in another 10 years, but so I think I would be more curious about where are you right now? What are you looking for? What steps have you taken? Because I wouldn't want to deprive them of doing the work necessary to get there. I'll provide resources and answers and opportunities, but my experience has been that if I just right away share, hey, here's what I'm involved with, you should do it too, it's like a 0% success rate because it didn't require enough effort for them to find what they were looking for. And I think people really need that quest and to feel like successful at the end.
They need to come to that decision on their own, and they gotta want it. Like, you got to where you are because something internally was driving you and motivating you. So you were putting in the work. You were moving forward with 100-unit development, even though you had no previous real estate experience, and you knew that there was going to be challenges along the way. But you also knew that by taking action, that's what's going to get you to wherever it is that wherever you're heading. Now, a lot of these groups, you can pay for some of these networking groups and get around other people. And I think one of the mistakes a lot of people make when it comes to paying for this, I call it paid networking, paid mentorship groups, is that they pay a fee and then they expect it to just be handed to them.
Right.
So what have you done to be successful within these networking groups other than just paying some sort of admission fee?
The first thing was identifying what value I had to the group. It was really easy to see the value that it could be for me, but value isn't exchanged for nothing of worth. And so, I think underscoring this conversation is it's been a lot of work understanding what my worth is, what my personal value is, what I bring to the table, and then showing up intentionally with what can I give you? How can I improve your situation? What talent, skills, abilities, experiences do I have that can benefit your life? And then things work out. People they want what you have, and so they come to you, and you exchange on an equal level, not me just being grasping for what someone else might have.
There are so many underlying things that you're sharing that relate directly to capital raising that some of our listeners might just be glancing over. So we'll definitely come back to that. But let's pivot a little bit and talk about these projects and these deals that you have going on in San Diego. I think it's a phenomenal play. And I think more people need to be aware of what you guys are doing. So appreciate you sharing all that information on building your network. And we will come back to that because I think a lot of that directly correlates to your success in raising capital these past 18 months. But share with us a little bit about what you got going on in San Diego.
Well, so this is something I'm really excited about. And it is not very well known. And that's one of the things I think that made it exciting for me is it's like discovering this Easter egg that nobody else has seen. But that also came through networking, and the benefit for me is I've gone through the same process that our investors need to go through. Is there's first the discovery. It's a novel idea, and what it is there's a legislative opportunity that's been created in San Diego. The way that they're trying to address their shortage of housing is by allowing the construction of additional dwelling units, or in Arizona, we'd call it a mother-in-law suite, or, a second home on the property. There's a lot of different names for it. They're called ADUs there. In San Diego, by right, you can build 2 ADUs on any property. On commercial properties, you can actually build 8, and that's state law. San Diego's expanded California's state law, and there's really an unlimited number of additional units that you can add to a property. And so the shortest explanation of what we're doing is we're converting single-family homes into small multifamily investment opportunities. So you take a single-family home, on average, we're adding 4 to 5 units, and that now becomes a 5-plex or a 6-plex. That then isn't transacted as you would transact on a normal single-family home where you're looking at a comp and selling it. Now it's an income-based transaction. You're selling to somebody that's looking for probably a medium-priced investment opportunity, is something in the $3 to $5 million range, which is easily attainable. And you're now transacting on a cap rate or on an income basis as a commercial transaction. And the play really becomes, can you build for less than what that is? And we know that we can. And because real estate in San Diego is so valuable, that's a bigger differential than you might find in somewhere like Arizona or Texas or something like that. We can build around the $350 per square foot, and real estate then is valued at somewhere between $700 and $1,000 a square foot. So there's a large multiple, which makes it difficult to lose money, which is very important. And we hope that also means it makes it easy to make a substantial amount of money.
So there's a couple things. People in the real estate world, they like to think that they're educated, and we're really not. We have our belief systems and things that we go with. One of those things that's often talked about in the real estate circles and the events across the country is never invest in California. And you and I had this conversation when you were sharing with us your projects and what you were working on. I would argue that it's actually an incredible opportunity, and I never considered investing in California until you and I sat down and had a conversation. So to those people so that's one question. These will all go together. Second, you talked about the housing shortage in California. The only thing you see on the news is how there's like negative net population in California. People are fleeing, is what the narrative they're trying to push, to Arizona, to Idaho, to Utah. But here you're saying that there's a housing shortage. So let's talk about those two things for a minute. One, your decision to actually invest in California, and then 2, addressing that housing shortage.
Yeah. Well, I think Warren Buffett has said that the time to go in is when people are going out, right? So I love it when people say never invest wherever.
You're like, great, more opportunity for me.
Potentially, right? They could be right. I'm not going to discount that. But when it's with such a broad brush, like never invest in this state, California resource-wise is one of the wealthiest, resource-rich places in the world, not just in the United States.
Hey, as a business owner or entrepreneur, one of your biggest struggles is raising capital. Maybe you've gone to the bank, maybe you've been turned down, or maybe you just have never thought of before speaking to investors. The reason the people here at Coplis Pro, Dallon and Paul, have decided to partner with us over here at Capital Connections is we not only teach people how to attract and raise capital, we actually put you in the rooms where the capital flows. That's right. My name is Brad Blazer, and I've raised over $2 billion. And over the last 5 years, I have personally taught and mentored hundreds of people around the world on how to attract, raise, and close capital so they can be doing something bigger in life. But it's not only the coaching and mentoring. While we're working together, I put you in rooms of curated events with family offices, broker-dealers, and registered investment advisory firms. That's right. We create the proximity to my network because we know that proximity is power. It's our belief and our finding that no other company out there offering services in the capital raising space is doing that, which is why we have forged this strategic relationship. If you'd like to learn more, click the link below that's provided here in this podcast. And this is Brad Blazer saying we can't wait to work together.
And so to paint with that broad a brush to me is kind of silly. But when you really understand the dynamics of the market, it makes it a very easy decision. And yes, there are some downsides, the taxation and things like that, but you're going to deal with taxation anywhere. And so the question really becomes, if you can remove the emotional component of like whatever is attached to California that makes it an emotional decision, and just look at the numbers, which you should do with any investment, it becomes a pretty easy decision. If you can create a product at half the cost of what you can sell it for, it's almost always going to be a good idea to do it, right? So for me, that's where it came down to is I wasn't looking at it as, is this California or not California? It's what is actually the opportunity? How am I protected on the downside? So what is the risk of me losing capital? What is the potential for gain? And if that's comparable or better than what else I'm looking at, then it deserves serious consideration. And so that's how I approach it with people is I think that statement is an entirely emotional and uninformed statement.
They hear something online, they read some article, and then they go with it without actually looking into the facts. Now, you live in Arizona, you invest in San Diego. How do you do that? How do you invest in another state when you live in another one?
Well, so our investors come from all over the country, and so that part is easy. Are you asking how do I physically manage being here and being there?
Because some people get caught into this mindset of like, oh, I'm only going to invest in my hometown or where I live.
Sure.
So that's what I'd like to have you share some insight on is with you living in Arizona, investing in California, how do you manage that?
Well, that would be the same as if you're investing in a stock market, any stock market, it could be the U.S. stock market or anywhere else, right? You're not investing in Meta because they happen to have a data center in Arizona. You're investing in that opportunity because you like it. With a fund that's regulated by the SEC, like what we have, it's very similar to investing in the stock market. It's just a private placement. And so the process is very similar to purchasing a stock. It's for the investor, it's very hands-off. They don't have to travel to California. They're not actually operating on the projects. So we handle all of that. And for me personally, living in Arizona, it's great because I have the opportunity of being in a place with lower taxation personally, lower property costs, but it's so easy to travel back and forth. I mean, if it's a really bad day, I can jump in the car and drive 6 hours, but on most days there's a lot of commercial flights or I fly privately. I became a pilot a few years ago, and so I fly myself back and forth.
And it's close enough to where you and I actually flew out there. Was about a year ago. I think we got there in
it's about an hour and a half or 2 hours on my plane. Yeah,
and since it was a private, smaller plane, we were able to land like 10 minutes from the property. Like it was insane. So no, I appreciate you sharing that. And especially when it comes to raising capital for these types of projects. And I'm glad you brought it up because when people invest in the stock market, they're not like, hey, where's this company located? They believe in the founders, they believe in the owners, they believe in the opportunity, and that's what they're really investing in. So let's talk a little bit about your experience with raising capital, because previous to your endeavors in real estate, had there been other opportunities for you to raise capital privately for other ventures, or was this your first true, tried, tested opportunity to really go and raise private capital?
I think up until maybe the last couple of years, I just wouldn't have labeled it raising capital.
Okay.
I had, several different businesses, restaurants, car dealerships, insurance companies. And when the business needed money, I would go look for people that had money and approach them with the opportunity of lending money or purchasing shares in the business. I didn't know that was called raising capital. It was just there was a need for the money to do a thing, and I didn't have the money. So I had to find somebody that had the money, didn't want to do what I was doing, but believed in the opportunity and would invest. And so in the last couple of years, I guess now I'm a capital raiser. What I like is that I think what I found is something that's unique. It's limited in opportunity. I don't think there are any other groups in San Diego that can offer the opportunity on the scale that we can. And so I'm building a relationship and giving something that almost nobody else in the world can give, which for me feels very empowering. Mm-hmm. And if I can help somebody move in their financial journey to a better place, that's super rewarding, and hopefully that's the experience for them. So, one of my core values is relationships, and that's what I see capital raising as is building relationships, and the medium of exchange is they're buying into a partnership that they don't have to do the work, and they've already done whatever work they've done to be able to afford to invest that way.
I think people underestimate what it goes into to raising capital to obtain the trust of somebody well enough that they are willing to write you a $50,000 to $100,000 check or more. Money tends to be the object that I think people are most emotionally attached to. So being able to part that and give it to someone else, believing in them, requires a significant level of trust. And that's one of the things we talk about all the time on the show, is just building that trust with people. So in your experience, raising the $9 million in the last 18 months, if there was one thing that you could say or recognize that you and your team have done very, very well in building that trust, what would you say it was?
Well, I think the first question for any investor that want to know is, how can I lose money? And I think you have to be able to answer that question first. And that's really how I approach it, because that's the experience that I went through when I met Christian. Was I saw what he was doing. It was an intriguing opportunity. He was very experienced, had a unique skill set. But I wanted to know if my money was going to be safe. And so that's what I spent time evaluating. And I came to the very quick conclusion that that's one of the great things about real estate, is there's an underlying asset that you own. No matter what else happens, your money never vanishes.
Yeah.
It might be sitting in a building or in a piece of land, but at some point you're going to be able to get most or all of your money back out. So that's thing number one, is people want to know that they're safe. And so I think you have to look at the opportunity and understand, how is it possible to lose? That should be a question that you're asking. The next thing is, you need to look at the relationship that you have with the people that are operating the deal, the fund managers, or, if you're buying into apartment complexes or whatever you're getting into, but look at what experience they have. What is their track record? Who else has invested with them? Have you talked to them? So really get to know the people that you're working with. And I think one of the ways that we've been successful is on a monthly basis, we invite people to come to San Diego, which is fun all by itself. You get a trip to the beach, but we actually walk people around to the projects that we're developing, which I think is a very rare opportunity. I don't think it's very frequent when you go and invest in an apartment fund or storage units that you get to go with the people who are actually doing the deal and touch and feel what your money is buying and see what it's going to be. So we provide that tactical, tangible opportunity. But that's really an opportunity for them to get to know us. So those, I think, are the two most important things. After that, I think you have to make sure that whatever you're investing in aligns with what your own personal goals are. If you want steady income, monthly income stream, I'm not the right investment.
Yeah.
And I would let you know that, hey, this probably isn't the best fit for you. If you're looking to grow equity and grow the actual pile of capital that you have, then we're a good fit.
I appreciate you sharing that. And one of the things that we've observed as we've seen you grow in this space, and one thing that I've been kind of envious about is your ability to do those property tours, because you guys you're acquiring more properties. You have some in the construction phase. And so you're able to invite people out and actually show them what you're doing. And I think by nature, we as human beings tend to have a hard time visualizing or seeing the final outcome. Now, certain people have that unique ability, which sounds like you and your business partner do. You see the opportunity there where most investors probably don't. But by you inviting them in and actually showing them, walking the properties, explaining the potential, I think that's what really helps it click for people. And in the investing we do, doing large apartments, we might invest in 2 or 3 deals a year, right? And it doesn't provide the same opportunity that I think your project does. So that's one thing that we've observed. And so to our listener, if you have an opportunity to walk these deals, to show these deals, to give them a chance to see it, it's going to be night and day difference for you. So, Alan, if there was one piece of advice you could give to people trying to raise capital in today's market, what would it be?
I was afraid that you were going to ask that. I think it really comes back to, I'm going to just bring this back to my own experience, is you have to know what value you bring. And if you're not confident in that, it doesn't matter if you're trying to raise capital or if you're just trying to make a friend or in a dating relationship. It doesn't really matter what the relationship is. This relationship has to be an investing relationship, but you have to be very confident in what value you have. And because most people are going to say no, right? I mean, I wish I was 100% close on every every investor that I talk to, but the reality is I don't want to be, because not everyone is a great fit for us. But the other thing is that if I was closing at 100%, it's probably pretty likely that I'm either talking to the wrong people, or there's something off in what I'm offering. It just shouldn't be that way, right? And so I think is the number one most important thing, is know what value you bring. And then behind that, I think the second thing I would say is you have to be honest with people. You have to be willing to share what's going well, but also what's not going so well. Yeah. Not every one of the projects that we're doing is 100% on timeline. And that's okay if we communicate that and let people know. That's also one of the advantages that we have of bringing people out, is being able to say, hey, we thought this one was going to be done in June. It's actually going to be August. And here's why. Let me show you what we ran into on this particular piece of property.
Then people know exactly what they're getting involved in.
Yeah.
They know what they're getting involved in. It shows that you're not trying to hide anything. You're like, hey, this is the reality of it. If it still aligns with what you're looking for, we'd love to be a resource for you. So being honest and transparent, and I think sharing bad news. like just communication in general, even if it's bad. I think sharing that with investors or potential investors, it just shows them who you are, because people aren't dumb. Like, they know stuff's not going to go right. They know things aren't going to work out perfectly. And if you try to act like they are, I think that creates some distrust and some bad blood.
Yeah, and I think understanding the narrative too is, I don't see a delay as bad. The market could go up in those 3 months and it could be good for us. It's just a change. It's the same thing as I don't love labeling things as failures. I prefer to say education or experience. The same way, like, the project may not go perfect, but because it doesn't, that might actually be to our advantage. It might mean that we have a different buyer that's willing to pay more. It might mean that the market goes in our favor. It might mean that interest rates come down. So that's how I prefer to see things, is here's what we expected. This falls outside of our expectation, but we're still optimistic about what that could mean for us. But either way, communicating the change, right? Don't be afraid that things changed.
Awesome. Very well said. Last question I have for you, Alan. You're one of our Capitalist Pro users. For those listening for the first time, Capitalist Pro is an all-in-one CRM geared towards people raising capital for real estate. And as fund managers ourselves, this solution came about because of our own challenges and just having an organized tool to manage those relationships. So, Alan, to those looking to get started in the game, or maybe they're already active, how important would you say it is to have a tool in raising capital?
I know that what you want me to say is that having a mustache is very important in raising
That's
capital.
the most important thing.
But Capitalist Pro is kind of like a mustache in that way.
Okay.
It does. It enables relationships, and that's really what you're dealing with, is relationships. And so prior to working with you, we were using spreadsheets, Google Calendar, Google Contacts. There's a lot of different ways we were trying to make it work. The reality is relationships were falling through the cracks. Mm-hmm. I had more than one experience where somebody was like, yeah, I was ready to invest. I just never heard back from you. And then I go back through like my text messages from 8 months ago. I'm like, you're right. I was supposed to follow up and it fell through the cracks, right? And I am not the perfect Capitalist Pro user. Technology is really not my friend. And we're at a point in our team where we're still learning and growing and developing, but it's exponentially better than what I had. Yeah. So the next, I think, point of growth for us, and you guys have been a great support in this, will be maximizing the capacity of that tool. But right now, having that is way, way better than what we didn't have before. And you guys have been great to work with.
Appreciate that. And if you're looking for a tool to help you raise capital in real estate, we're actually hosting a workshop that goes more in depth on what Capitalist Pro is. So if you text the keyword money to 623-624-1190, we're hosting a workshop on that in just a few days. So text that word money to 623-624-1190, and you will get a link to register for that workshop. So, Alan, this was an absolute pleasure. It's always great chatting with you, hearing about your projects. If somebody is interested in learning more, what's the best way they can contact you?
Well, Dallon, I'll just tell them to reach out to you. I know you'll point them in the right direction. No, my email is easy. It's alan@mmtmgrp.com, or you can look us up online, Momentum Capital Group, momentumcapital.com. I'm on social. You can find me there. So I'm pretty easy to find.
And to your point, and to our listeners, if you want to reach out to me, I'll absolutely connect you to Alan. If you're in the San Diego area, if you're in California, if you're in the Southwest and you're interested in getting involved in some of his tours, definitely make sure you reach out. They got some exciting stuff going on. And Alan, I'm looking forward to seeing what you accomplish over the next 12 months. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Dallon. It's been a pleasure.